Mr. Dunn, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman DeGette. I am obviously pro-life, and I appreciate the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs v. Jackson returning jurisdiction to the states. As my colleagues had previously stated today, the Constitution does not explicitly guarantee the right to an abortion. I believe that the legislative decisions regarding abortions always should have been made by the states, and going forward, I hope that they will be. I am troubled by the extreme behavior of many radical pro-choice activists who threatened and, in fact, did burn crisis pregnancy centers, as well as those who continue to threaten and harass our Supreme Court justices and their families over this decision. I hope that we will return to some level of civil discourse as this conversation continues. Misinformation is running wild in the national debate about abortion, scaring women into believing that they will be left to die if faced with an ectopic pregnancy, or claims that they'll be imprisoned if pregnant. These claims serve only to embolden radical activists who push wild policies, and I think this inflammatory brand of activism is appalling, and it must stop. Madam Chair, I have no questions, and I will yield the remainder of my time to Ranking Member Griffith.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much. Dr. Rasnack, according to a 2019 opinion article in MedPage Today by Dr. Kevin Campbell, he asserts that currently, or at that time, only approximately 12.1% of all practicing physicians in the U.S. were members of the AMA. Is that accurate?
Our total representation numbers among physicians and medical students who are the basis for our membership are well above
and
that.
he specifically in the article excluded medical students, but it's in the between 10 and 20. Is that fair?
That's the number of people who pay dues, but I want to be very clear where our policy comes from. And our policy comes from a House of Delegates in which every specialty and every state medical association is represented.
But it comes from your membership, correct?
Nope. It comes, state medical associations and specialty societies, all of them are represented in the House of Delegates.
So even though only 10 to 20% at most of the membership is practicing physicians, the AMA claims to speak for all physicians as a whole?
We do speak for the profession because the profession comes together twice a year as a whole to make our policy. That's how our policy works.
But you agree, just like we don't agree up here, that there's a lot of disagreement amongst physicians.
People come to a topic like abortion, obviously, with their individual approaches, but I would welcome you to come to one of our House of Delegates meetings and see that process and see that it's a very democratic, science-based process where everybody expresses their opinions and votes happen.
Who do you believe is the patient when it comes to an abortion, the baby, the mother, or both? If you don't have
I'm going to defer to Dr. Verma, who actually practices as an OBGYN to reflect on definitions.
I'm going to yield then to my time to Dr. Burgess. Thank you.
No.
I wanted the
Gentleman
AMA's
does not have
position.
the ability it's Mr. Dunn's time.
I'm happy to reclaim the time and yield to Dr. Burgess.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. Dr. Francis, you heard the earlier exchange that Dr. Verma and I had about RH isoimmunization, blood incompatibility. Most people nowadays are not aware of the fact that prior to 1968, there were a certain number of pregnancies that were lost, secondary to RH incompatibility between the mother and the baby. Look, I practiced OB-GYN for 25 years. I consider myself a specialist in obstetrics, gynecology, and defensive medicine. And good defensive medicine would say that rather than cut a corner with a medicated-assisted termination, that you provide that security of coverage with ROGAM after a pregnancy loss, whether it be spontaneous or elective. Is that not correct?
Absolutely, and even though the risk is low, as you stated, it's not zero. And when I practiced in Kenya, saw babies affected by RH isoimmunization because they didn't have access to ROGAM. But even more dangerous than that is giving a woman these medications when you don't know her gestational age accurately. At 10 weeks, 1 in 10 women will need a surgical completion of their abortion. Just 3 weeks later, 1 in 2 to 3 women will need a surgical completion of their abortion. And so accurate dating of a pregnancy is crucial. And again, even per ACOG's own document, up to 50% of women will be wrong about their gestational age based on their last menstrual period alone.
So bottom line, it's not a good idea to cut corners just to be administering abortion medications. Thank you for your participation today. I'll yield back to Dr. Dunn.